Hi there. This week I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my story, where it began and where it is now. It's been an interesting journey to say the least. Well, when I was a boy, I was already drawn to the light. I was very different from the other kids. Although I was pretty wild and tested life to its limits, but there was something within me that knew right from wrong and knew absolute truth when I touched it. And I'd be delving into all kinds of strange and unusual things for a child, like architecture and ancient history, crystals and minerals. I remember the very first amethyst that I saw. I was not very old, perhaps about 10, 11 or 12 years old. And I saw this huge chunk of amethyst in a shop in the Lake District. And I just had to have it. I just had to have this stone. My son has it these days, but it was by my side for a long time. And at one point, I owned the biggest crystal business in Manchester, other than for a wholesaler that was down the road. Crystals and minerals have always been a big part of my life, and that really was the connection with the earth. It was the earth realm. And my mum's called beryl, and I remember as a child finding this stone called beryl in an atlas that was also had pages about crystals and minerals. And I was always fascinated by this stone beryl because it was green, and green was my favourite colour. But as I grew through my teens, probably about the mid-teens, I thought that I might actually join the clergy when I grew up. I thought, maybe my role is to be a priest or a vicar in the Church of England. And I actually went to a church school, but strangely enough, none of the church business made any sense to me. Even though I went to a church school and we went to church meetings and this, that and the other, I never understood any of it. It was completely strange. It just didn't work in my consciousness. But when I had my awakening, which was around 38 years old, it began. And within 2 to 3 years of that awakening beginning, I'd changed my life from being a self-employed typesetter to becoming a full-time healer. And that was just a massive, massive change. And not something I wanted to do at all. I was pushed into it. The universe called, and I had no choice, absolutely no choice. And in the early days of healing, I was tiptoeing into this business, into this game, not really knowing what was what. People were knocking on my door and asking, "Are you the healer?" And I would ask them, "Well, where did you hear about me from?" And they frequently couldn't answer. It's just that they had this number or this address and they came. And it became clear after some time that the universe was sending these people to train me. Simple as that. They would send people with a difficulty or a problem. They'd frequently been to everybody else and couldn't find an answer. And I was there trying to find answers for these people. Well, the light had always called in some way, but it obviously became much stronger when I had the awakening. And within a few years of that awakening, and at a time when I was working in a practice with some colleagues in South Manchester, a client came in one day and brought a book for me. And this is the book. It's called Jesus Untouched by the Church. And it's actually the Gospel of Thomas. And this client became a great friend. A man that I've been very proud to know, really. A super deep thinker. And a man who's really deeply connected with the spirit of everything. And he brought this book in for me. And one of the things I'd been driven to find was to get as close as I could to the original teachings of Jesus. And in the Gospel of Thomas, this is about as close as you can get. Or the Dead Sea Scrolls. These were the writings that were written back in the day that had real depth and meaning and were as close as you could get to the original spoken words of Jesus. So what was I seeking? I was just, I suppose, seeking light and truth. I was just driven constantly to find truth. And the copy of this book is the actual copy that this friend lent me. I became so attached to it, I bought him a new copy and sent that back, and I kept this original because I'd used it so much. I just couldn't part with it. And it's never far from me. I don't consult it every day. But when I first started to read the sayings in here, many of them I couldn't understand. And what you're trying to find is the truth that's hidden in the words. So what's actually hidden within the words is light. And I've picked out a couple of sayings here that had great meaning when I eventually understood them. And this is the first one. Jesus said, "I will choose you 1 out of 10,000 and 2 out of 10,000, and they shall stand boldly, being a single one." What he's actually describing in that saying is the second coming of the Christ light, or the second coming of the Christ consciousness. So people are waiting for Jesus to return. Well, he's not coming in that form. What's coming is his light and his consciousness, and it's hidden within the words. So the more you read the words, the more the light touches you. And this is another little saying. Jesus said, "He who drinks from my mouth shall become as me, and I myself will become him, and the hidden things shall be manifested." So again, what he's saying, he who drinks from my mouth, he who seeks the truth of what I found, that's what he's saying here. He who seeks the truth of what I found shall become as me, and the light that I am will become him. So what I was always seeking was this light, but I didn't know why. But as things began to unfold, the light became me and I became the light. And the more you become the light, the more you can find the truth in the hidden logia, or the hidden sayings. And the other great thing that I was trying to understand really was, who was this man? Who was he? We have this image that's been painted through 2,000 years of religious teaching, really. But who was the man? Well, he was an ordinary guy. He was just like you and me. And that's the key to finding him, is to realize that he's not up there on a pedestal. He's down here on our level, speaking to us. Back in the day, he was there saying, "Gather round. Let me give you a teaching of what I found. And if I can point you in the right direction, then you will find it too." All he wanted to do was show us how he'd found what he'd found. And what he'd found was the light at the core of his centre. So that's really what my awakening and my journey has all been about. It's about finding the light at your centre. And as you find it, it's so illuminating that you only have one mission in life, and that is to share it with other people, to show other people the value of it, the power of it, and how to find it. So, of course, many people have a religion. I was brought up in a religion, and my father was actually at one point in his teens a lay preacher in a religion. And he was a very connected guy. He was connected with the light of the Christ consciousness, for want of a better description. It's the light of the universe. So what Jesus was trying to show us was the light of the universe is right at the very core of who you are. And so my pathway, certainly in my early youth, I knew a light was calling. I knew there was a goodness in me, I suppose. And I wanted to share this goodness. You know, I was different from all the other kids, but I could still be just as wild and crazy as they were. But there was another side of me that could step back and say, there's something different about you, Dave, but what is it, you know? And what it comes down to is that saying, I will choose you, 1 out of 10,000, 2 out of 10,000, and you will stand boldly being a single one. And what that refers to is the chosen ones awakening to the light that he's pouring into us. And as that second coming awakens within individuals such as myself and some other people that I've met on the path, what happens is we stand together in that light, shining it into the world. Now, sometimes I look at humanity and think there's just no hope for this lot at all. You stand back, sometimes I see humanity as if I'm viewing it from above the earth. I'm looking down at these people like ants scurrying here, there and everywhere, and they're all caught up in the blindness of the heart. And you think, there's just no hope at all. But of course, when you connect into that light, the hope is always there. The hope is that seed inside every little heart. And one day that heart in everybody will suddenly wake up. It will suddenly say, whoa, hang on a minute. Why am I running round in circles chasing something that's not worth chasing? Because what is worth chasing is that little seed of light in the heart. So I come back down to earth from viewing humanity and thinking there's no hope. And I root myself and ground myself into the earth again. And I say, well, there is hope. And all I can do is shine this light forth that I've illuminated within myself. But I've not illuminated it totally by myself because I was chosen to have this light poured into me. And all I can do is sit here or stand in the world in great gratitude for the light that has been poured in. Boy, it hasn't been easy sometimes because that light turns you inside out. It turns you around in the process of you becoming the light. But of course, every step of the way, although there are mountains to climb, you get on the peak of these mountains and you look down and shine the light. You say, wow, this is just indescribable and unbelievable and amazing. And again, all my life's mission is about is to share that with anybody who wants to walk that path, to show them how to get there, to share the tools I've been given. You know, in the early days, there were dozens and dozens of spirit guides working with me, teaching me so many different things. You know, from being the hands-on healer to becoming an individual healer with the individual gifts, to becoming a person who was creating tools that could bring the light of the universe into people, to working with the earth and becoming a shaman, work that I still love to do now. And just recently, I've been working on a fabulous case of, you know, a house filled with darkness and just bringing the light into that space and finding out what's going wrong. My heart just becomes illuminated and excited when faced with dark images that need to be swept clean with light. It's a fascinating process. And each step of the way takes you kind of another step up the ladder where you can see things from a different perspective. And each step you take up that ladder, you think, wow, it just can't get any better than this. But it does. And it does, as you take each subsequent step. But each step is a kind of apprenticeship. When we take each step, we're stepping into a different level of light. And the universe is always trying to teach us how to handle the power and the intensity. God, for want of a better description, God won't give you any power till he absolutely knows you can use it appropriately. And so light is given and power is given in a measure where you can trip yourself up with it, and everybody trips themselves up with it until you learn not to. So that's a little bit. I've not spoken about the Emerald Heart Light and how that was given, but many, many things came before that to prepare me for receiving the Emerald Heart Light. And then after that, the Darshan. But we'll save that for another time. But that's a little introduction into who I am, my story, how I came to be, where I am right now, which on one level is nowhere, because I sit in the humility of this amazing journey of seeing and being able to share so many amazing things with so many people along the path. But that's how it started. I was already being called as a child. That seed was already awakened as a child within me. But when I got into my late 30s, that's when the man who brings that most powerful light into our lives decided it was time to turn the gas up a little bit. And boy, was it hot in the kitchen from time to time. Anyway, I look forward to speaking to you again soon. And in the meantime, with all my love and all my blessings, walk your path of light and you won't be disappointed. Bless you.